Hey guys, I'm Dave, and thanks for checking out another episode of Debt Free Differently. When you're working to get out of debt, you need focus, you need intensity, and some might say you need a little bit of crazy. And that's what this video is about, the craziest things that we did to get out of debt. If you know of Dave Ramsey, he talks about being gazelle intense, running away from debt like your life depends on it. And that's kind of where this comes from. Some people get out of debt quickly by selling a house, a car, an RV, or tapping into an oversized savings account that they've been scared to touch. But not everybody has those things. We paid off over $80,000 of debt in 20 months by getting really focused, really intense, and just being a little bit crazy. Quick disclaimer, I wouldn't necessarily recommend these things, and some of them came up because of our particular circumstances, but I hope that you could draw some inspiration from seeing some unusual things that other people have done to get out of debt. So if you're ready, let's take a little trip to Crazy Town. We love income here, so let's start with that. We had 9 regular, different income sources. Between our real jobs and the pay schedules for our side jobs, we had money coming in almost every single weekday. And the awesome part with that is that we were able to make debt payments almost every single day. While our regular jobs and most legitimate side jobs had us on a weekly or bi-weekly pay schedule, things like Airbnb and Postmates were paying us multiple times per week. Sometimes it was a lot, and sometimes it was a little. But it's kind of a crazy thing where you see a deposit come into your checking account Monday through Friday. If you want more details, I made a whole video on how we made $50,000 in 1 year with side jobs, and I'll link to that in the description. Next, let's go with a big one. We moved to a cheaper state. We had lived in LA for close to 15 years, and this move was something that we had talked about for years. In fact, for about 4 years, we took trips to Vegas, Arizona, and Colorado just to check them out and see where we could potentially live. At the time, we were living in a 1-bedroom condo on the west side of Los Angeles in Culver City. In a best case scenario, if we wanted to stay somewhere near where we were right then, we would probably move into a 2-bedroom condo at some point, and we'd have to live there for probably the next decade. We were working hard, managing our money, saving, doing everything right, and that felt a little bit sad to us. When I got a job offer in Colorado, this was our chance to lower our cost of living long term and just change the way that we are going to live day to day, so we took that leap. But it wasn't that simple. My wife was in grad school at the time in LA, so I ended up moving first, and we lived apart for 5 months. I had to pay for a room in an Airbnb when I got here, cut costs as much as possible, and pick up every side job I could to cover the cost of the move and still allow us to pay down debt. So it absolutely slowed down our debt payoff process, but we had to keep our eyes on the long game. We did the math and knew that we'd come out on top with a cheaper house, lower cost of living, and a bunch of opportunities to just live life differently. But to get there, we were going to have to cut everywhere in 2 different cities to make this crazy plan work. There was a lot of math and a lot of keeping our eyes on the prize to make sure that we were going to end up in the life that we're living now. Which leads me to my next one. I put myself on a $15 per week food budget for 3 months. I'm not saying that this is really what anyone should do, but it is possible, and from talking to other people, I think this is about as extreme as it gets when you hear of people's debt-free stories. I lived off hard-boiled eggs, apples, canned vegetables, baby carrots, yogurt, and water. And I think I occasionally got ramen just to switch it up. Sometimes apples would be something like 6 for $1 at the grocery store, and then I would just buy whatever canned vegetables were on sale at the time, even if they weren't something that people would normally eat straight out of the can like I did. Side note, these were definitely all generic everything, and there were no Honeycrisp apples to be found. This was not normal or healthy. I lost about 20 pounds over the course of those 3 months. Luckily, we have family here in Colorado, and they knew what a crazy budget we were on both sides of the fence, so they would take me out to lunch on the weekends so that I could reinflate. But really, that's all I ate for 3 months. It let us put $200 extra towards debt during the crazy part of this journey. People at work wondered why I was pretty much just eating like a rabbit, but it was 3 months. It took a while for people to really catch on. This one is a little weird, but it falls into that temporary sacrifice category. I slept in a sleeping bag for 2 months. After I found us a place to live in Colorado, all of our stuff was still going to be in LA for a couple months. That included beds, sheets, blankets, furniture, clothes, everything. It was still all out there. Luckily, I had brought a sleeping bag with me for some reason from LA to Colorado because I never knew if I was going to end up in an Airbnb from hell at some point. So instead of taking money that could have been thrown at debt to buy crappy furniture or things that we weren't going to like later, I just decided to get a camping mat and sleep on the floor for 2 months. People thought I was exaggerating until they saw it. I was literally living in an empty house with a sleeping bag and a couple stacks of clothes on the floor, and life was pretty simple. When I think back on it, it was pretty peaceful. I had no TV, no creature comforts, basically what you would find in a college kid's shower caddy, a garbage can, and my $15 of groceries was all that was in this house. 2 months later, the moving truck came and I had stuff again. It was totally fine and kind of a fun experiment to see if I could live an extreme minimalist life for a couple months. And finally, even though people would rather give up heat or air conditioning before they would give this up, I didn't have internet for the 2 months of my sleeping bag life. I did have my phone, but it is kind of weird not to have internet in your house. You just kind of expect it to be there, like electricity. Since there was internet at work, I would bring my broke-ass Android tablet with me to work, download a few TV shows or movies off of Netflix, and I would watch them at home. But then if it was the weekend or I somehow got through everything, I would go to the local Starbucks, sit outside on the bench, use their free Wi-Fi, and download what I wanted to watch. It was weird. This odd period of life also had me pick up some weird hobbies. I started downloading juggling videos off of YouTube and practicing just because there was nothing else to do, and somehow I actually got pretty good at it. So yep, no internet for 2 months, and that gave us an extra $100 to put towards debt. And those were just some of the crazier things that we did to pay off $80,000 in 20 months. Some of the things we did were big, some of the things we did were small, but the most important thing was that we put in the work consistently. These crazier things are absolutely part of the journey, but when you're paying off a large amount of debt, it's much more important to just stay focused and committed every single day. And when you have the choice to do one of these crazier things, it will test you and it will test how committed you are to your journey, but just stay at it day after day and you will get to where you want to be. And if you learned something new or like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, or subscribe to my channel to learn how to pay off debt, manage your money, and even build wealth a little bit differently. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Debt Free Differently.